Welcome to your daily dose of Poverty Proof, how the rich think differently and how you can train your brain for wealth. Well, in my nation yesterday, one of our government ministers got up on national television and spoke about the economic effects of the lockdown. And she said, to her great surprise, switching off an economy for 2 months has done great damage to the poorest of the poor in our country. And for people who have been saying that rather passionately since day one, it came as this almost a slap to the face that it was a surprise to her, that you can switch off an economy in the interests of people as though those were two different things. There seems to be this kind of mindset, especially among government ministers and people who believe in centrally planned economies, that an economy is just a luxurious indulgence, that you must care about people instead, that the two are somehow mutually extricable. They are not. An economy is how we feed people. So based on that, today let's answer a very simple, but I think incredibly important question that people need the answers to. And the question is capitalism morally good? I think you know by now that based on my 3 and going on 4 books on poverty versus wealth, that I'm going to be speaking on the side of capitalism and free market trade. And here's the first thing that we need to get to grips with, is the idea that capitalism is a system. In fact, it isn't. Capitalism is what happens when people are simply free. If you allow human beings to do what they do and to go about their lives without interference from a tyrant, capitalism is the natural result. It is as simple as this. I make a thing. You like that thing. You buy that thing from me. I take the money that I've earned and I like another thing that you've made and I buy it from you. And if I don't like the thing that you've made, I don't buy it from you. And that's capitalism in a nutshell. And if the thing that you make gives me great value in return and you make it better and better over time, myself and other people like me will buy more and more of them from you, and you in turn will become wealthier. As a result of becoming wealthier, you can invest in the thing you make and make it even better. That's capitalism. That's the whole thing. It's not a system. It's people allowed to be free to trade with one another and to make things that mutually delight and mutually aid. Now, let's take a look at this on the most basic level of all. You have a set of human beings all around the world. We're going on some 7.5, 8 billion of us now. We have basic needs. We need to eat, we need to educate our children, we need to go places, we need to do things. So what is A, the most effective, and B, the most morally excellent system for achieving that? Well, consider, there are only 3 options for getting what you need from other people. Those 3 options are love, or trade, or force. That's it. Those are the only ways you can get things from other people. Love is the first one, and it is the most exemplary. It is most commonly seen, for example, when you look at parents raising children. Parents raising children are not trading for anything. They do it out of love. People helping charities, people helping friends, people helping one another, they do these things out of love. That's the first way you can get things done. Now, the trick here for certain political reasons is to say that trade is the opposite of love, and I'll show you why it isn't. Trade and love work astonishingly well together. There is nothing in the trade system that excludes doing things out of love. If you are an entrepreneur, a business owner, an employee, someone contributing to the economy, someone working, there is nothing stopping you from doing things out of love. You are free. That is the condition for trade, is freedom, which means you are also free to act out of love. Now here's possibly the best part of the whole thing. When you engage in trade, which is based on freedom, you maximize your profit, your wealth, your prosperity. Economies and nations that are built around this one have more to give to others. So what's the third option? The third option is force. And humanity has been trying to get out from under the yoke of this one for centuries. Centuries ago, it would have looked like this. I work for a chief, or I work for a lord, or I work for some form of a tyrannical overseer. And all that I do is based on what that tyrannical overseer tells me to do. I supply their needs. I am essentially there to service them. And they would generally reward me with enough food to get by that I can wake up and do it again the next day. Bring in the advance of human freedom, and all of a sudden that changes. Now you've got groups of people who are free to trade with one another and do not have to service a lord, a chieftain, an overseer. The prosperity that resulted from that was unprecedented in human history. Now, for the past couple of hundred years, mostly Western nations have been built around that structure, the freedom to do trade, and in those nations, poverty is almost unheard of. It has been just about eradicated. So where does poverty still exist? Well, the biggest ones, the biggest examples of this would be parts of Africa, India, and with a little bit of an asterisk there, and China with another asterisk. Now, India and China tried to do something different. Instead of simply allowing free trade, they went for centrally planned economies. That is the newer, the updated version of an overseer, a lord telling you what you may and may not do. They direct your work, they plan an economy, they tell people what to do, they extract what they want from that populace. In the last few decades, both China and India have started to prosper immensely. Why? Well, what they've done in both cases is to repeal restrictions and simply give their people freedom. Under those conditions of freedom, people are able to trade, and as a result of that trade, the prosperity has gone up immensely. Between the year 2000 and the year 2020, prior to the coronavirus hitting and people shutting down economies, we lifted over 1 billion people out of poverty. That did not come from central planning, it did not come from government social or welfare programs, it came from freedom, from allowing people to trade with one another. So, your choices are force, which is done by either a lord, a chief, or an overseeing central planning government, or love or trade. Two of those can go together. Love and trade work astonishingly well together. Trade is the one that uplifts the most people out of poverty. As a result of that, people who are free to trade are free to give out of love as well. Under a force system, your proceeds are taken and redistributed. That is not love, it is force. It is the exact opposite of free and joyful giving. It is taking by force. So capitalism is premised firstly on freedom and secondly on the idea that you have to delight the people who would trade with you. If you don't give them good value, they don't continue to trade with you. It is the morally superior system from the ground up. Now, what's interesting to me here is that we have a system that is both morally superior in its underpinnings and morally superior in its outcomes. It genuinely lifts people out of poverty. So, what is the response to that from people who do not approve of free trade? Well, they will throw the inequality argument at you. Now, there's a history behind this one, and you need to know the history. When the Soviet Union started practicing the communist experience over a century ago now, they put out an open challenge to the United States of America. They said, we will lift more people out of poverty than you. We will solve the problem of poverty faster than you do. And they had theories which they stated, and they called them science, this is the best part of the entire thing, that said under capitalism, wage earners would get poorer and poorer as the work they did became more and more of a commodity. Now, history proved the exact opposite on both counts. Firstly, America way out-prospered the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union went through a couple of periods of mass starvation, millions of people dying as a result of the force experiment. So that was the first way in which the experiment failed. The second way in which it failed is that the wages of people over that past century went up, not down. Now, we will debunk Mr. Piketty's look at that one as we go along in further videos. He does something very dishonest in order to try to prove that they have stagnated. Quick version of it is this. He looks at a category, not the people moving up and down through the category. But we will get to that one. Sum total of it is that the United States and free markets in general out-prospered the force experiment, and also the wages went up in general. So, what do you say to that if you have lost the argument? Well, you switch the goalposts. Instead of saying, well, it's about lifting people out of poverty, you look at the prosperous nation, you say, well, you've prospered, but you're prospering unequally, and there's something sinister about that. Folks, it's a false metric. Equality of outcomes is not the goal. The goal was to solve poverty. There is no place on earth where people with a conscience, good people, don't want to solve poverty. Everyone wants that one solved. However, equality of outcomes is not the goal. Solving poverty and getting people out of a situation in which their families are starving, that's the goal. Now, in the most healthy of free trade societies, you are by definition going to have massive inequality. It goes like this. Everyone is moving up. Some people are moving up at a certain pace. Others are moving up at a galactic pace and are outpacing the lifestyles of pharaohs. And it doesn't matter. Equality before the law is important. Equality of human rights are important. Equality of financial outcomes, not important at all. Solving poverty is the problem. Don't switch the goalposts. That's dishonest. Now, what about these mega millionaires and billionaires around the world? The argument is that they hoard their money and they keep it from the rest of us. Well, firstly, it is statistically and numerically untrue. The wealthiest people in the world are also measurably the greatest philanthropists on earth. They give more, both as a total sum of money and as a percentage of their total wealth, than anyone else. So that argument is simply untrue. However, even if it wasn't, it would be irrelevant. It's their money. You don't get to decide what to do with it. Still, given that they get to decide what to do with it, they tend to create more employment, and they are the greatest philanthropists on earth. They promote education, they promote health, they build hospitals, they build universities, they fund people who are willing to study, and as a category, they are a force for good on earth. Are there immoral capitalists? Well, sure. There are also immoral stamp collectors and immoral nurses. That is not an attack on the system itself. And in fact, capitalists have an interest in keeping up the morality of their system. Where it is corrupt, where it goes wrong, it damages them. We don't look at a corrupt doctor in the sense of being an evil human being and say, you see, we need to get rid of doctors. Doctors are an evil idea. No, we say that doctor is committing malpractice and needs to be brought to book. We'll look at more of this sort of thing as we go along, but for now, that's an entry-level introduction as to why capitalism is the morally superior force. It is better at lifting people out of poverty, and its underpinnings are based on goodness, on freedom, and on offering value to one another. Welcome to the channel Poverty Proof, where we discuss things like that, and we show you how you can participate in the greatest economic miracle our species has ever seen, and also feel good about yourself while you do it.